Hello there and happy Monday. It's 12 noon. I'm Jessy Chahal. You're watching The Brief. Joining me shortly is crisis management analyst Nordin Abdullah, speaking to us on Sri Lanka's economic crisis as well as the influx of foreigners and the national security threat. And a little later, AIREEN OMAR of Capital A speaks to me on the hashtag #RatuTech campaign. All this happening in the next few minutes. Do stay tuned. Well, first things first, let's look at what's trending in News in Brief. Firstly, the Prime Minister will pray for the recovery and good health of Sultan Abdullah and Raja Permaisuri Agong. According to the Prime Minister's Facebook post just yesterday, the entire Keluarga Malaysia is also praying for the well-being of the royal couple. The King and Queen are undergoing self-quarantine at this point at the Istana Negara after being confirmed positive for COVID-19. Meanwhile, parents have been advised not to bring children to the Ramadan bazaars to protect them from exposure to COVID-19. According to Deputy Health Minister, while the country has entered the transition to an endemic phase, children and unvaccinated people are not advised to go to crowded places. In the meantime, the Deputy Health Minister says the decision to shorten the quarantine period for healthcare workers infected with COVID-19 has been made according to scientific advice by experts. Healthcare workers who have been fully vaccinated, have received their dose and are asymptomatic will undergo assessment to ensure that they are safe to return to work. Well, all that, of course, in the new norm. But in other developments, according to COVID now, over 14,000 children aged between 5 and 11 have received both doses of their vaccination, all this under the Pick Kids program. These stats as of yesterday. And on other good news, 67.4% of adults have received their boosters. And the case of 3 siblings who acted dangerously by protruding from a moving car in Tambun Ipoh recently has been referred to the Deputy Public Prosecutor for further action. According to the Perak Police Chief, the police have submitted the investigation papers to the DPP and released the father after recording his statement. Well, it's time now to bring in Nordin Abdullah to look at a crisis update. First, let's look at what's happening in Sri Lanka with this economic crisis. Sri Lanka is currently experiencing its worst economic crisis in history. Nordin, welcome back. It's Monday. Lots to discuss after the weekend as well. In Sri Lanka, with long lines for fuel and cooking gas, essential all being in short supply and long hours of power cuts as well, the public has been suffering for weeks. And the latest update we have at this point is Sri Lanka's cabinet ministers have even offered to resign from their positions in response to calls from increasing protests amid economic instability. Nordin, walk us through what's behind Sri Lanka's economic crisis at this point and how did it get to this point in the crisis?
Well, Jessy, I think what we've seen in the last few hours, I've read that the cabinet has resigned, all of except for the Prime Minister. And I think what we're looking at here is a perfect storm in terms of a crisis. We're seeing rising debt levels at the national level. We're seeing inflation, especially food-based inflation. We're seeing political instability. We're seeing also protests on the street, and at the same time, the economy has not picked up, and there are, we're looking at, a crisis that has been brewing for quite some time. We're not, and unfortunately, Sri Lanka did suffer those terrible terrorist attacks before COVID-19, and then went straight into the COVID-19 problem. So tourism, which of course drives a lot of the economy there, has been impacted. But at the same time, there was an attempt by the government to do some rapid reforms, which I think has actually impacted food security, especially in terms of rice production. So when we see, people's inability to get their hands on food, this actually for me has led to the critical nature of this crisis. And we're seeing here, fuel and medicine is becoming difficult to get hands on. So this is what is currently driving that crisis. But the underlying problem in the economy is too much debt, and the inflation has kicked in, and I think that's what we're seeing now in terms of this crisis.
Well, of course, if we compare this to some other global crises as well of what's going on around the world, this is one of the current issues that, of course, is troubling enough. Many critics are saying, Nordin, that the root of this crisis, which is perhaps the worst in several decades, lies in economic mismanagement by successive government that has created and sustained a twin deficit. Give us a better idea, again, in terms of navigating through this crisis, because what we're learning right now as well is that social media platforms and access to social media has also been blocked. And so the people are left with not much of an area, of a place to even voice or share what's going on at this point.
Well, I think, Jessy, whenever you see the inability for people to communicate to their governments, they often take to the streets. For me, I look at the similarities here between the Sri Lankan current crisis and the Arab Spring. We see power being shifted further up into the executive, which has created an issue for a lot of people in Sri Lanka. At the same time, you're seeing food-based inflation. And some people can deal with all kinds of political changes, but the problem is when you have food-based inflation, it impacts people at the family level. People can't get the food that they want or need even. So when you can't get that, that's what pushes people onto the streets. And I think that's what the government is experiencing now. As well as the myriad of problems that they've got at the moment. So there's a lot for people to look at. So I think from a Malaysian perspective, we need to look at what we export to Sri Lanka and ensure that that this is not disrupting Malaysia's business interests.
That's right. Protesters are still defying the curfew after social media platforms have been shut off as well. And what we know at this point is Western and Asian diplomats based in the country said that they will monitor the situation and expect the government to allow citizens to at least hold peaceful demonstrations as well. We will keep you updated as this story develops right here on Bernama TV. Nordin, let's move to something else that, of course, is a little bit related as well, from Sri Lanka to foreigners here in Malaysia. Malaysian Maritime Enforcement Agency now says that large number of foreigners taking over from locals as fishermen is a national security threat. That versus the long-standing issue of locals not wanting to take up some of these jobs, these 3D jobs perhaps. Several foreign fishermen have been arrested for their involvement in criminal activities over the past few years as well. Now, these activities include drugs and contraband goods and even possible human smuggling. So what's your take on this, Nordin?
Well, Jessy, MMEA has been doing a wonderful job over the last few years, and especially during this crisis of COVID-19, in terms of helping, being part of the solution of shutting down those rat lanes or rat trails. Now, when we start to look at what's happening now is the government is starting to realize the importance of food security. And there's two sides to this story. One is, we need to extract the natural resources from our waters and ensure that flows into domestic supply chains. So for that, sometimes you need to use foreign labor. But the question now is, are there illegal foreign labor being used in the fishing industry, and those who are incurring from the neighboring countries into Malaysian waters to fish Malaysian waters? And I think that is a key issue. So when we look at the ability for Malaysians to get their hands on healthy, clean, and quality fish, of course, Malaysia is surrounded by ocean, so it shouldn't be a problem. Yep. We need to rely on the national fishing industry to be able to deliver those resources. At the same time, we need the enforcement agencies to ensure that we're not competing unjustly with illegal foreign fishermen.
Nordin, thanks for your insights and look forward to speaking to you soon. That was Nordin Abdullah, Crisis Management Analyst, weighing in a little bit on some of the trending issues locally and globally. Let's move into business in brief at this point of time. The ringgit traded lower against the US dollar in the early trading session today on lack of demand due to falling crude oil prices combined with China's weaker purchasing managers index. As of 9 a.m. today, one US dollar is 4 ringgit and 21 cents. On to the update on the stock market. Bursa opened in a cautious mode on profit taking after closing on a firm note on Friday. Ongoing concerns over Russia's war in Ukraine and expectations to further US interest rate hikes, which continue to plague overall sentiments. As of 9:05 a.m. today, the FBM KLCI fell 4.60 points to 1597.81. And from the stock market to gold prices, as of 9:30 a.m. today, the physical price of gold stood at 252 ringgit and 35 cents per gram. And in other business updates, the Entrepreneur Development and Cooperatives Ministry are in discussions with Bank Rakyat and SME Bank on the process of restructuring the loan repayment of entrepreneurs affected by COVID-19. Now, according to its minister, he has also tabled the proposal at the recent cabinet meeting. With foreign travelers now allowed to enter the country, the ministry says it's set to focus on assisting entrepreneurs in the tourism industry, including tour bus operators and homestay owners. And in Russia, of course, its currency makes a strong comeback this Friday after several boosting measures, with the exchange rate of 81 rubles to a dollar. Since the Ukraine crisis, it has taken a downturn, plunging as low as 120 to the dollar on March 9th. Analysts are saying that the fast recovery comes from economic strategies taken in raising the benchmark policy rate to 20% and imposing a limit on foreign cash withdrawals from foreign currency accounts. Well, with all that happening in the world, locally and globally, it's now time for our feature segment. AirAsia Academy has just launched a campaign titled #RatuTech, aimed at empowering women to acquire tech skills and to inspire them to realize their pursuit of STEM jobs. Well, joining me today from Capital A is IREEN Omar, who will walk us through this campaign. Hi, IREEN. Welcome on board to the brief. Thanks for being with us today. You are President of Ventures at Capital A. Tell us a little bit about your role there.
So I am in charge of ventures, so meaning I look at incubating businesses for them to be of a certain size, like what you see in Super App and Big Pay and Teleport and so forth. So I look at incubating and building businesses from scratch, leveraging on the assets that AirAsia has, whether it's on its brand or its network or its database or its presence in ASEAN and so forth. And we look at investing in companies around the region to see how they could fit into the whole ecosystem and create further value with the offerings and the services and the innovative solutions that the companies may have.
That's right. And speak of investing as well. And right now, Capital A is taking a huge step in investing in its own personnel as well. Tell us a little bit about #RatuTech, the campaign, and who mooted the idea, the backstory behind it, how it all came about.
Okay, so this #RatuTech campaign is actually created by AirAsia Academy. The reason why we wanted to do this campaign is that we noticed that a lot of the tech candidates, when we're hiring people for the whole group, are mostly male. And this brought us back to what we were before when we first started as a low-cost carrier. There were hardly any female pilots. They were all male pilots. So how do we encourage women to be able to see that this is a career option? So the same thing that we're doing with RatuTech, but the difference is that we want to reach out to underprivileged women or girls or ladies, especially in the B40 segment, to have them understand what tech is all about, what the digital economy is all about, and to help them have the right kind of skill sets that's in demand and relevant so that they could land themselves jobs in the digital economy and have a successful career. So it's really more to open their minds that tech is also a career for women, and that they, with this course that we're providing them, not only they will be getting jobs, they will get professional certification, because our courses are actually designed for them to be able to obtain professional certification, like from MBOT or CompTIA if they go on to specialize in cybersecurity and so forth. And they have accreditation as well, micro-credentials, in the sense that should they want to pursue their studies in the future, they will be able to transfer the credits that they have in this program and will be able to pursue a master's degree in data science or in business administration with some of the local universities that have that's partnering with us on this.
Right, Irene, you've been in this industry for a while now. You have a seat at the table. Many women are grappling for that opportunity as well. What are some of the barriers you are seeing within the industry, whether it's STEM or beyond?
Sorry, I didn't hear that question. Can you repeat that, please?
I was saying that you've been in this industry for a long time now, and you have a seat at the table as well. But many other women and girls at the starting point are trying to grapple with opportunities that are coming their way. What are some of the barriers that you see within the STEM industry and beyond for women to be more, more successful and take on the opportunities that come their way?
Right. I think mindset is key. Girls, for a start, would need to understand that maths, STEM, computer science, and so forth, it's actually a good option as how it was with finance, legal, or commercial, or marketing, and so forth. I mean, you see those areas are already very popular among the ladies. So let's do that with tech. Let's make it interesting career opportunity or a solution that they could provide by using tech. So I think this is something that you need to expose since young. I think that's and also to introduce women in this field who are already successful, because there are many CTOs and CIOs out there who are ladies, whether they're in Malaysia or whether they're abroad or in the US or so. So it's part of our job to also expose them to this identities or this personalities so that they get inspired by them. So I think really is for the educators to play a role, as well as not just the learners to explore many other opportunities of what the digital economy can offer them.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now, we talked about women representation slightly earlier, as you mentioned, there are many CIOs, CTOs as well. But what's your view on women representation in the field of technology here in Malaysia? The last we checked, those numbers, although up there, are not very prominent as well. And how can Ratu Tech really help to close that gender gap in tech? And if you want to specifically talk about the B40 community.
Understand. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. Firstly, technology should be accessible to everyone, not just a few. I mean, topics like AI, big data, and so forth, it should not just be accessible for the top 1% or 2% of the population. The rural areas, the B40s and so forth should also be able to have access to this technology and to be able to understand and study it. So it's really important that this campaign exposes them to such opportunity. This campaign also is to encourage women in that field who are successful to also play a role in the many discussions or in encouraging corporates to sponsor and encourage girls and ladies to reskill themselves so that they will have a successful career in this economy, especially in the IR 4.0. So yes, it's the percentage of women in this field is very low. It's probably less than 20% on average. But when it comes to a specialized field that we're looking at, I mean, for instance, AIREEN Group itself, when we want to hire data science or software engineers or cybersecurity experts or so, we do not see many women applicants. They are mostly men. So there's something that we need to do about it, and we need to raise the awareness with other corporates who are also in the same boat as we are. And hopefully that will actually narrow the gap. And with this #RatuTech campaign, we encourage corporates to do the same thing and work with us to collaborate and make sure that narrow we narrow that gender gap in this field.
That's right. What campaigns like this do also is promote conversation, education, and awareness at all levels, from ground up to stakeholders as well. And what's really interesting is technology. It's versatile. It evolves, and it's best because it brings people together. And by learning to create technology, girls and women get the opportunity to really speak up and shape the world that they are living in, and really bring on that change as well. And so, having said that, tell us a little bit more about the campaign. What does it really entail, and what are the requirements for a woman from the B40 community to join this campaign? What will they learn? What are the opportunities in terms of the job market after completion of the program, Irene?
Okay, so the minimum criteria is that you just need to finish SPM. You just need to pass SPM. That's it, really. We open up to girls as well as ladies who wants to reskill themselves. So the participant will go through up to about 6 months program, depending whether they want to go to full-time or part-time. So it's a full-time, it's 6 months. If it's full-time, it's 3 months. If it's part-time, it's 6 months. The first thing they need to do, if they have no tech background at all, they have to go through a digital fundamental program, which introduces them to various aspects of technology, coding, introduction to big data, introduction to AI, and so forth. Once they have finished that program, then they will choose an area where they would want to specialize. And there are 6 areas that they want to specialize. So one of the track is product UI UX design, another is software engineering, data scientist, digital marketing, cloud infrastructure, as well as cybersecurity. So these are the 6 key areas that we ourselves are looking for talent to be able to grow into a real technology company. So if we're going through this and we need this talent, I'm sure many who are embracing IR 4.0 would want to have this talent also. So for us, being able to reskill them with the right kind of co-curriculum, and this co-curriculum is designed together with Google as our head of technology, so that we know that once they graduate, they will land themselves a job and the kind of skill set that's required from various corporates in technology as well. So that's how it works. And corporates are encouraged to sponsor because we're doing this at a very heavily discounted price, specifically focused for B40s. So it's a great opportunity for corporates to be part of this and help the B40s to elevate and improve their economic status. And as soon as they can find a job, they will no longer be B40s anymore.
Absolutely. We've just witnessed, 2 years of a lull, and how having the knowledge to be able to step on a platform in STEM can really enable and empower women. And I know you're on a mission, you and your team, but we must also know that it takes time, action, and support, which is why you have other stakeholders also joining you in this effort as well, of course, to create a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive technology world. Irene, thank you so much for your time today, and we look forward to seeing this campaign grow, and we hope to speak to you again.
Thank you.
That was Irene Omar of Capital A weighing in a little bit on the Ratu Tech campaign. Well, of course, as usual, we bring you what's happening internationally as well. China's metropolis of Shanghai began a citywide antigen testing with strict epidemic prevention measure to curb the resurgence of COVID-19 cases in the country. The government say that they have closed off eastern and western halves of the city through the use of nucleic acid and antigen testing to stem the virus from spreading. Now, update onto the situation in Ukraine. Reaching over a month now in terms of timeline, food exporters in the country say that they are struggling as fertile farmlands are expected to yield very little this year, with major disruption in the export of agricultural products like corn and wheat and soybeans. The global food chain might be hit big time. Meanwhile, in Canada's capital of Toronto, hundreds of Ukrainian Canadians, accompanied by fellow supporters, marched in protest of Russia's escalated violence over the weekend. The protest comes following Ukraine's accusation of Russia's army carrying out a massacre in the near town. Now, Canada is home to nearly 1.4 million people of Ukrainian descent, making it the Western Hemisphere's top region of Ukrainians living outside their country. And in the meantime, yesterday, freight-landed trucks headed for Europe faced massive delays in queues with emergency measure implemented by British authorities to stop traffic in the port of Dover as the shortage of ferries continue. Ferry capacity between Dover and France has been badly disrupted after P&O ferry services were suspended after the sacking of 800 workers last month. The company says they yet to receive a clearance to resume operations. And Pakistani Muslims mark the beginning of the holy month of Ramadan with special evening of Tarawih prayers and breaking of fast. The first day of Ramadan also falls in the midst of Pakistan's political turmoil, with Prime Minister Imran Khan avoiding an attempt to overthrow. But for most, inflation and exorbitant prices of food have been the biggest concern. And what's trending worldwide on the mighty little bluebird or Twitter? The Grammys are still all abuzz today, hiking up the list as the 64th edition of the awards ceremony as well. And still on the Grammys, Bruno Mars is on that long list after the song "Leave the Door Open" was named Song of the Year. Very much still in entertainment and what happened at the Grammys as well. And of course, in closing, rainy weather has not stopped crowds from hitting the bazaars on the first day of Ramadan, especially after more relaxation of rules under the transition to endemic phase. But we would also at this point like to remind all bazaar goers, please do not forget to practice the SOPs and keep your masks on. And if you can, stay home to stay safe. Well, that's all the time I have on the brief today. Remember that the brief now will air from 12 o'clock noon from now on. And Salam Ramadan to all those observing this very auspicious month. I'm Jessy Chahal. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.